12 Angry Men is a post-courtroom drama. Most of the movie takes place in a jury room, where a group of 12 men are deciding the fate of an 18-year-old that may or may not have stabbed his abusive father to death. With this being a murder trial, every single member of the jury must come back with a verdict of not guilty for the accused to be found innocent. And likewise, if every single member votes guilty, then he will instead receive the death sentence. The jury unanimously believes that the defendant is guilty, all except for one man. He'd like to talk about it because this is a matter of life and death, and he does have some unanswered questions. But everyone else has already made up their minds, and nobody is exactly excited to be locked in a room without air conditioning while they debate what should be an open and shut case. But he doesn't stand alone forever, as more and more of them are persuaded that there is no way to be certain. And as the room becomes divided, it becomes clear that some of these men are not judging the individual himself, but they're judging what he represents based off their own prejudices. "12 Angry Men" might sound like a bit of a boring movie. It was originally a broadcast teleplay that was then adapted for the stage, and then shortly after it was adapted into this film. The entire thing takes place on one set, all except for its bookends. So what we're watching is basically an hour-and-a-half stage play, black and white with a fair amount of grain and, of course, a whole lot of drama. This movie isn't a spectacle, it's focused on showing small, subtle action. I think the biggest question for 12 Angry Men is if it's aged terribly in the last 65 years, or if it still holds up as a satisfying drama. Well, this probably shouldn't be a huge surprise since this movie's pretty famous, but it absolutely holds up. As far as it being an entertaining and engaging film, again, all of the action is pretty much centered on the interactions and the dialogue between all of these characters. In order for the movie to be good, the dialogue has to be good. And I'll get to that, but I do want to point out that despite this being 100% a character drama, all of the technical elements and visual storytelling are executed beautifully. The camera rarely focuses only on a character's face when they're talking, but instead, you get a wide-angle view of everybody at the table. You get to gauge everybody's reaction at any given moment. And there are close-ups, there are plenty of them, but the framing is always complementary to the moment it's capturing. So if you're afraid that a story like this is being wasted on this kind of artistic medium, it's not. This is very competent filmmaking, and although I think it would be really cool to see this in a live performance, there's a great benefit to the way this movie captures everything. So not only does this movie still hold up, but it really hasn't aged. You see here on the screen, obviously, this is a movie from 1957. It certainly looks like it. But there isn't a single element about this movie that makes it feel outdated when it comes to its writing, when it comes to its characters, when it comes to its conflict. Because the issues that this movie is tackling are just as relevant today as it was then. Although we didn't get to see the trial, we do know that the accused was abused by his father. We know that he has an unbelievable alibi, that the murder weapon matches a knife that he claims to have lost, and there are several witnesses to the murder that make this an ironclad case. But as the jury starts to pick little contradictions out of the witnesses' testimonies, they find that this kid might have just had a terrible defense attorney. As many of the jury members start to realize that there is actual room for reasonable doubt, several of them are unshaken by these conversations, and all of this arguing and debating is just making everyone angrier and angrier. These bleeding hearts are twisting the truth any way they want just to help this kid that probably committed the murder. At least, that's how they see it, because they actually believe the kid did it. They want the kid to be guilty. The jury is supposed to be impartial, completely indifferent, just looking at the facts of the case. And so many of these people refer to the defendant as one of those people. That's what's so great about 12 Angry Men. We don't witness the trial firsthand. We hear it all from the jury itself and their recollection of the events that took place. We aren't judging the character that is on trial, but instead we're judging the morality of the group of men that are calling for his execution. The dialogue in this movie is intoxicating. Once they start bickering and fighting and yelling, you're going to be completely invested and engrossed in the movie. The performances are perfect. The movie is airtight. There isn't a single exchange that should have been cut because everything is information. When it isn't a detail about the trial itself, it's an examination into the characters themselves in this room. Every little moment gives you a little piece of these characters, and every single person here gets the spotlight for some time. It's a timeless story with complex characters and a good clean pace from start to finish. It's nothing short of brilliant. It's a blast to watch, and it's fairly emotional. There isn't a single thing to seriously critique about this movie. In everything it is, and everything it sets out to do, 12 Angry Men is a perfect movie. Of course, apart from it being old and grainy and black and white.